All right, well, hey everyone, welcome to March 18th Bible reading. And we are jumping back into reading through the book of Deuteronomy, which is a repeating of the law. And so, if you remember Moses here, he's giving all of the laws and the requirements again that God has tried to give to his people before they go into the promised land. And so, just want to make a quick note here. I've been traveling this week at a church planting conference down in Florida, actually, and so you'll notice my background is a little bit different. Internet's not quite as clear, but that's okay. We're just going to jump in. We're going to do our best at getting this thing done, and so I'm excited to be able to read God's Word with you from wherever I'm at. All right, so Deuteronomy chapter 21 says, Moses says, "Suppose you go out to war against your enemies, and the Lord your God hands them over to you, and you take some of them as captives. And suppose you see among the captives a beautiful woman, and you are attracted to her and want to marry her. And if this happens, you may take her to your home, where she must shave her head, cut her nails, and change the clothes she was wearing when she was captured." Okay, that's interesting, isn't it? She says, "She will stay in your home, but let her mourn for her father and mother for a full month. And then you may marry her, and you will be her husband, and she will be your wife. But if you marry her and she does not please you, you must let her go free. You may not sell her or treat her as a slave, for you have humiliated her." All right? "Suppose a man has two wives, but he loves one and not the other, and both have given him sons. And suppose the firstborn son is the son of the wife he does not love. When the man divides his inheritance, he may not give the larger inheritance to his younger son, the son of the wife he loves, as if he were the firstborn son. He must recognize the rights of his oldest son, the son of the wife he does not love, by giving him a double portion. He is the first son of his father's virility, and the rights of the firstborn belong to him. Suppose a man has a stubborn and rebellious son who will not obey his father or mother, even though they discipline him. In such a case, the father and mother must take the son to the elders as they hold court at the town gate. The parents must say to the elders, 'This son of ours is stubborn and rebellious and refuses to obey. He is a glutton and a drunkard. Then all the men of his town must stone him to death. In this way you will purge this evil from among you, and all Israel will hear about it and be afraid.' If someone has committed a crime worthy of death and is executed and hung on a tree, the body must not remain hanging from the tree overnight. You must bury the body that same day, for anyone who is hung is cursed in the sight of God. In this way you will prevent the defilement of the land the Lord your God is giving you as your special possession. If you see your neighbor's ox or sheep or goat wandering away, don't ignore your responsibility. Take it back to its owner. If its owner does not live nearby, or you don't know who the owner is, take it to your place and keep it until the owner comes looking for it. And then you must return it. Do the same if you find your neighbor's donkey, clothing, or anything else your neighbor loses. Don't ignore your responsibility. If you see that your neighbor's donkey or ox has collapsed on the road, do not look the other way. Go and help your neighbor get it back on its feet. A woman must not put on men's clothing, and a man must not put on women's clothing. Anyone who does this is detestable in the sight of the Lord your God. If you happen to find a bird's nest in a tree or on the ground, and there are young ones or eggs in it with the mother sitting in the nest, do not take the mother with the young. You may take the young, but let the mother go, so that you may prosper and enjoy a long life. When you build a new house, you must build a railing around the edge of its flat roof. That way you will not be considered guilty of murder if someone falls off the roof. You must not plant any other crop between the rows of your vineyard. If you do, you are forbidden to use either the grapes from the vineyard or the other crop. You must not plow with an ox and a donkey harnessed together. You must not wear clothing made of wool and linen woven together. You must put 4 tassels on the hem of the cloak with which you cover yourself on the front, back, and sides. Okay, we'll return to some of these to try to give a little bit of clarity, because I'm sure you might be wondering what in the world is going on here. Deuteronomy 22:13. Suppose a man marries a woman, but after sleeping with her, he turns against her and publicly accuses her of shameful conduct, saying, when I married this woman, I discovered she was not a virgin. Then the woman's father and mother must bring the proof of her virginity to the elders at the court as they hold court at the town gate. Her father must say to them, I gave my daughter to this man to be his wife, and now he has turned against her. He has accused her of shameful conduct, saying, I discover that your daughter was not a virgin, but here is the proof of my daughter's virginity. Then they must spread her bed sheet before the elders. The elders must then take the man and punish him. They must also fine him 100 pieces of silver, which he must pay to the woman's father, because he publicly accused a virgin of Israel of shameful conduct. The woman will then remain the man's wife, and he may never divorce her. But suppose the man's accusations are true, and he can show that she was not a virgin, the woman must be taken to the door of her father's home, and there the men of the town must stone her to death, for she has committed a disgraceful crime in Israel by being promiscuous while living in her parents' home. In this way you will purge this evil from among you. If a man is discovered committing adultery, both he and the woman must die. In this way you will purge Israel of such evil. Suppose a man meets a young woman, a virgin who is engaged to be married, and he has sexual intercourse with her. If this happens within a town, you must take both of them to the gates of that town and stone them to death. The woman is guilty because she did not scream for help. The man must die because he violated another man's wife. In this way you will purge this evil from among you. But if the man meets the engaged woman out in the country and he rapes her, then only the man must die. Do nothing to the young woman, for she has committed no crime worthy of death. She is as innocent as a murder victim, since the man raped her out in the country. It must be assumed that she screamed, but there is no one to rescue her. Suppose a man has intercourse with a young woman who is a virgin but is not engaged to be married. If they are discovered, he must pay her father 50 pieces of silver, and then he must marry the young woman because he violated her, and he may never divorce her as long as he lives. A man must not marry his father's former wife, for this would violate his father. Deuteronomy 23. If a man's testicles are crushed or his penis is cut off, he may not be admitted to the assembly of the Lord. If a person is illegitimate by birth, neither he nor his descendants for 10 generations may be admitted to the assembly of the Lord. No Ammonite or Moabite or any other of their descendants for 10 generations may be admitted to the assembly of the Lord. These nations did not welcome you with food or water when you came out of Egypt. Instead, they hired Balaam, son of Beor, from Pethor, in distant Aram Naharaim, to curse you. But the Lord your God refused to listen to Balaam. He turned to the intended curse into a blessing, because the Lord your God loves you. As long as you live, you must never promote the welfare and prosperity of the Ammonites or Moabites. Do not detest the Edomites or the Egyptians, because the Edomites are your relatives, and you lived as foreigners among the Egyptians. The third generation of the Edomites and the Egyptians may enter the assembly of the Lord. When you go to war against your enemies, be sure to stay away from anything that is impure. Any man who becomes ceremonially defiled because of a nocturnal emission must leave the camp and stay away all day. Toward evening he may bathe himself, and at sunset he may return to the camp. You must have a designated area outside the camp where you can go to relieve yourself. Each of you must have a spade as part of your equipment. Whenever you relieve yourself, dig a hole with the spade and cover the excrement. The camp must be holy, for the Lord your God moves around in your camp to protect you and to defeat your enemies. He must not see any shameful thing among you, or he will turn away from you. If slaves should escape from their masters and take refuge with you, you must not hand them over to their masters. Let them live among you in any town they choose, and do not oppress them. No Israelite, whether man or woman, may become a temple prostitute. When you are bringing an offering to fulfill a vow, you must not bring to the house of the Lord your God any offering from the earnings of a prostitute, whether man or woman, for both are detestable to the Lord your God. Do not charge interest on the loans you make to a fellow Israelite, whether you loan money or food or anything else. You may charge interest to foreigners, but you may not charge interest to Israelites, so that the Lord your God may bless you in everything you do in the land you are about to enter and occupy. When you make a vow to the Lord your God, be prompt in fulfilling whatever you promised him. for the Lord your God demands that you promptly fulfill all your vows, or you will be guilty of sin. However, it is not a sin to refrain from making a vow. But once you have voluntarily made a vow, be careful to fulfill your promise to the Lord your God. When you enter your neighbor's vineyard, you may not eat your fill of grapes, but you must not carry, you may eat your fill of grapes, but you must not carry away any away in a basket. And when you enter your neighbor's field of grain, you may pluck the heads of grain with your hand, but you may not harvest it with a sickle. Suppose a man marries a woman, but she does not please him. Having discovered something wrong with her, he writes her a letter of divorce, hands it to her, and sends her away from his house. When she leaves his house, she is free to marry another man. But if the second husband also turns against her and divorces her if he dies, the first husband may not marry her again, for she has been defiled. That would be detestable to the Lord. You must not bring guilt upon the land the Lord your God is giving you as a special possession. A newly married man must not be drafted into the army or be given any other official responsibilities. He must be free to spend 1 year at home, bringing happiness to the wife he married. It is wrong to take a set of millstones, or even just the upper millstone, as security for a loan, for the owner uses it to make a living. If anyone kidnaps a fellow Israelite and treats him as a slave or sells him, the kidnapper must die. In this way you will purge the evil from among you. And in all cases involving serious skin diseases, be careful to follow the instructions of the Levitical priests. Obey all the commands I've given them. Remember what the Lord your God did to Miriam as you were coming from Egypt. If you lend anything to your neighbor, do not enter his house to pick up the item he is giving you as security. You must wait outside while he goes in and brings it out to you. If your neighbor is poor and gives you his cloak as security for a loan, do not keep the cloak overnight. Return the cloak to its owner by sunset, so he can stay warm through the night and bless you, and the Lord your God will count you as righteous. Never take advantage of poor and destitute laborers, whether they are fellow Israelites or foreigners living in your towns. You must pay them their wages each day before sunset, because they are poor and are counting on it. If you don't, they might cry out to the Lord your God, and it would be counted against you as sin. Parents must not be put to death for the sins of their children, nor children the sins of their parents. Those deserving to die must be put to death for their own crimes. True justice must be given to foreigners living among you and to orphans, and you must never accept a widow's garment as security for her debt. Always remember that you were slaves in Egypt, and the Lord your God redeemed you from your slavery. That is why I have given you this command. When you are harvesting your crops and forget to bring in a bundle of grain from your field, don't go back to get it. Leave it for the foreigners, orphans, and widows. Then the Lord your God will bless you in all you do. When you beat the olives from the olive tree, don't go over the boughs twice. Leave the remaining olives for the foreigners, orphans, and widows, When you gather the grapes in your vineyard, don't glean the vines after they are picked. Leave the remaining grapes for the foreigners, orphans, and widows. Remember that you yourselves were slaves in the land of Egypt. That is why I'm giving you this command. Suppose two people take a dispute to court, and the judges declare that one is right and the other is wrong. If the person in the wrong is sentenced to be flogged, the judge must command him to lie down and be beaten in his presence with the number of lashes appropriate to the crime. But never give more than 40 lashes. More than 40 lashes would publicly humiliate your neighbor. You must not muzzle an ox to keep it from eating as it treads out the grain. If two brothers are living together on the same property and one of them dies without a son, his widow may not be married to anyone from outside the family. Instead, her husband's brother should marry her and have intercourse with her to fulfill the duties of a brother-in-law. The first son she bears to him will be considered the son of the dead brother, so that his name will not be forgotten in Israel. But if a man refuses to marry his brother's widow, she must go to the town gate and say to the elders assembled there, "My husband's brother refuses to preserve his brother's name in Israel. He refuses to fulfill the duties of a brother-in-law by marrying me." And the elders of the town will then summon him and talk with him. If he still refuses and says, "I don't want to marry her," the widow must walk over to him in the presence of the elders, pull his sandal from his foot, and spit in his face. Then she must declare, "This is what happens to a man who refuses to provide his brother with children." Ever afterward in Israel, his family will be referred to as the family of the man whose sandal was pulled off. If two Israelite men get into a fight and the wife of one tries to rescue her husband by grabbing the testicles of the other man, you must cut off her hand. Show her no pity. You must use accurate scales when you weigh out merchandise, and you must use full and honest measures. Yes, always use honest weights and measures so that you may enjoy a long life in the land the Lord your God is giving you. All who cheat with dishonest weights and measures are detestable to the Lord your God. Never forget what the Amalekites did to you as you came from Egypt. They attacked you when you were exhausted and weary, and they struck down those who were straggling behind. They had no fear of God. Therefore, when the Lord your God has given you rest from all your enemies in the land he has given you as a special possession, you must destroy the Amalekites and erase their memory from under heaven. Never forget this. Okay, boy, there are so many things here in this passage of Scripture. Again, it's really important, that we pull up to that 10,000-foot view. We can drop down and we see the details that Moses is giving. But again, remember what it is that God is trying to do as he's working here to establish a moral and just society. And he's also working with a culture who operates in many ways very differently than what you and I operate. And so he's speaking into a culture where it's not uncommon for the Israelites to have multiple wives, let's say. And so God gives them instructions of, hey, you've got to make sure that you act in a way that is moral within the confines of what you are doing as a society. He's trying to get them to make sure, like even the things that he mentions here of like if a woman reaches out and grabs a guy's testicle, I mean that kind of thing. It's like some of the stuff just seems a little bit bizarre. So I'd ask you the question of like, why do you think, sit back from it a little bit, and why would God give that kind of instruction? Two men getting in a fight, one of the wives, gets involved and assaults the other man. Okay, because that's where let's move beyond the what she did, but the details of it to what is it that God's trying to give them as far as boundaries, codes of conduct. They're especially in a culture. Remember, they're surrounded by a very permissive culture, right? And cultures all around them, pagan cultures that are, have temple prostitutes, where they have pagan worship and they're burning their children in the fires to Molech. And so they're doing all of these, just a lot of things around there. And God is trying to speak into various situations that will come up, and it kind of puts us in kind of similar places of like we have situations in our churches, in our communities, in our culture that come up that are difficult, right? And God is. What are the things that he says he repeats to them? He says, first of all, he repeats over and over, like he gives them specifically, the Israelites, some of these rules of like you can't plant a different type of seed in between your vines, your rows of, like you must not plant any other crop between the rows of your vineyard. I'm like, well, why is that? Or you must not plow with an ox and a donkey harnessed together. Not wear clothing made of wool and live in woven together. What's he doing there? He's treating the Israelites. He's trying to keep them. He's giving them these parameters of separation of things. What's the bigger lesson he's trying to teach them? Separation from the other cultures. And so he's giving them some pretty stringent rules in some of these things. Like, we look at it today of like, what's the big deal? We put different, yarns together, cloth together in our clothing all the time. And again, what is it that he's trying to do? Is it inherently evil to put cotton and polyester together? No, that's not the point. The point is he's trying to keep in their mind this idea of keeping separate from this pagan culture. And so he's reinforcing it with some of these rules so that it's ingrained inside of them, so they don't go and do what they end up doing. And with the boundaries, they still end up going and joining these other cultures in their worship of false idols, and it costs them dearly. And so think through when you're reading these details, try to pull up a little bit higher and ask, what's the purpose of specifically teaching these people in that time, in those cultures, the rules that he was trying to give them? Remembering again the ultimate goal that God has, right, of keeping them separate from pagan nations, keeping them from worshiping other gods, having rules, having laws, having consequences, right? So God's establishing all of those things that are so absolutely important. And he consistently would say, in this way you will purge Israel of such evil. He's interested in purging things out that are going to be dominoes. Remember, the domino effect of cultural slipping. Look where we're at in America today compared to where we were at 100 years ago. We are embracing more and more and more and more and more and more things that are sinful. So if that's the case, imagine what 100 years from now is going to look like because of the dominoes that are falling. What God does is sometimes he puts those boundaries around us, right? And he says, whoa, for you, it might be, hey, I don't want you doing this thing right here because I want to put a boundary around your life that keeps you from going off the cliff 5 more steps over. And so God does that for the Israelites, and he does that for us. And so hopefully that helps us understand a little bit. Again, some of these things are culturally nuanced, right? He's speaking to a specific culture. So imagine God, even right today, speaking to a group that is, in Nigeria, Africa, or in the jungles of South America. What they're going through right now culturally is completely different than Western civilization, than suburban, Charleston, so it's completely different. And so God's gonna give us instructions that in our culture might help us draw lines and boundaries that are going to keep us safe from falling into sinful practices that will eventually destroy us. Because we don't want to be destroyed, right? God doesn't want us to be destroyed. And so he's going to speak those things into our life. So I hope that helps a little bit. I know I didn't touch every little nuance here because, you can just, as you're reading through it, kind of draw the conclusions that that seem to fit. And so that should help quite a bit in you trying to figure these these rules and laws out that God has given to the Israelite people. All right, well, God bless you. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Hope you have a really great day.